I never thought trimming my hedges would lead to a secret war with the HOA. But that's exactly what happened. I've lived in this neighborhood for 8 years. It's quiet, mostly families and retirees. Nothing fancy, just the kind of place where people smile at each other and wave from their driveways. That's why I moved here after my time in the service. After years overseas, all I wanted was peace, a backyard, some space to breathe. I'm not the kind of guy who causes trouble. I keep to myself, but I'm friendly. I help neighbors carry groceries, shovel snow in the winter, mow my lawn every Saturday morning without fail. I don't throw parties. I don't leave junk on the porch. I just enjoy the calm. We do have an HOA, and like most, they've got their rules. Some make sense, like keeping the grass cut, or not painting your house neon green. But others, they're flat out strange. You need permission to plant flowers. You can't leave a basketball hoop out overnight. Someone once got written up for a garden gnome that was too whimsical. I'd managed to avoid problems, until last spring. It started after I trimmed the hedges in front of my house. Nothing dramatic, just a quick cleanup. They were getting too tall and blocking the front windows. I used a leveler, made the lines straight, and even bagged the clippings right away. 2 days later, I got a letter. It was an official notice from the HOA, claiming I had made unauthorized modifications to the landscape. They said my changes didn't follow community aesthetic guidelines, and warned I'd face fines if I didn't restore the original design. I laughed at first, but the more I read, the less funny it felt. Something about this didn't sit right. Something was off. At first I thought it was just a mistake. Maybe someone on the HOA board was new. Maybe they mixed up addresses. I called the number listed on the letter and left a polite voicemail. I even sent an email with before and after photos of the hedges, just trying to clear things up. No response. A week later, I noticed something strange. My neighbor, Mrs. Harris, sweet lady, walks her little dog twice a day, stopped me near the mailbox. She lowered her voice and leaned in. "You didn't hear it from me," she whispered. "But someone's been asking questions about your yard. Says you're not following guidelines. People are talking about what?" I asked, half laughing. "My bushes." She gave me a look that said, "This isn't funny." The next morning, I spotted a man standing across the street. Sunglasses, clipboard. I recognized him from the HOA meetings. He didn't knock or say hello, just stood there looking, writing things down. That night, I decided to check my outdoor cameras. I had one by the front door, and another by the back gate, just for security. What I saw made my stomach twist. At around 5:47 p.m., while I was inside fixing dinner, a man, the same man, walked up the side of my yard, ducked behind a tree, and snapped several photos over my fence. He crouched low, angled his phone through the slats, then darted away when a car passed. I downloaded the footage and sent it to the HOA email, along with a short message. "Please explain why a board member is trespassing on private property to photograph my backyard. I'd like to resolve this civilly." No response. 3 days later, I got a second letter. This one claimed my backyard contained non-compliant garden decor. Specifically, they mentioned a wooden bench I'd had for years, and a wind chime my niece gave me for Christmas. It didn't make sense. These items had never been a problem before. That's when it hit me. Someone wasn't just watching my yard. They were targeting it. They wanted me to feel small, pressured, controlled. But here's the thing. They picked the wrong veteran for that. Wrong. After that second letter, something changed in me. This wasn't about rules anymore. It wasn't about hedges or benches or wind chimes. It felt personal, targeted, like someone had decided I didn't belong. I sat on that same wooden bench they complained about, staring at my yard, wondering what I'd done to deserve this. That's when a memory hit me. Clear as day. It was the middle of my second deployment. We were in a rough zone, hot and loud, surrounded by dust and tension. Our job was simple: keep the peace, protect the people, and hold the line. One night I remember sitting with my squad under a tarp, tired and dirty, talking about what we'd do when we got back home. "Man, I just want a little yard and a grill," one guy said. "That's it, peace and quiet." We all nodded. That was the dream. I came back alive. Some of my brothers didn't. I swore I'd never take a single day of freedom for granted. And now here I was, back on American soil, being harassed by someone with a clipboard, and too much free time. I decided to go through the proper channels again. I printed out the still images from the video footage. I attached the camera timestamps. I highlighted the sections of the HOA rulebook that proved I hadn't violated anything. I dropped the packet off in person at the HOA office. The receptionist barely looked at me. 3 days later, I got a reply. It said, "We have reviewed your complaint and found no evidence of wrongdoing. It's possible that your concerns are based on a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of normal HOA activity. In other words, you're imagining things." That was the moment the anger set in. I wasn't crazy. I had proof. I had done everything by the book. I called up my old unit buddy, Ray. He lives a couple towns over. I vented. He listened. Man, he said, they're poking the wrong bear. The next day, 2 more buddies dropped by with burgers and beer. I told them everything. We sat in the yard swapping stories about deployments, about bad bosses, and now about tyrannical HOA boards. By the time the sun went down, we had a plan that would be bold, loud in spirit, but completely within our rights, something peaceful, but impossible to ignore. It started as a joke, really, but by the end of the night, we were calling it Operation Camouflage. We didn't want to be rude, we didn't want to fight, but we weren't going to let them push me, or anyone around either. That was the balance we had to strike. Make a statement, but keep it respectful, loud in message, quiet in tone. Ray leaned back in his chair and grinned. Let's show him what subtle resistance looks like. I raised an eyebrow. Subtle. He laughed. Okay, maybe not that subtle. We spent the next few days planning. It started with a theme, camouflage. Not just the clothing, the whole yard. We'd turn my property into a tribute to nature, peace, and every vet who'd ever been told to sit down and shut up. But we'd do it with humor, creativity, a little over-the-top ridiculousness. I called it a camouflage party. Just a backyard get-together for friends. Nothing illegal. No rules broken. Word spread fast among our veteran group. Everyone loved the idea. One guy offered to bring camo netting he had left from a hunting trip. Another showed up with a full ghillie suit, looked like a walking bush. Someone else had a fold-out tent shaped like a World War II command post. We even borrowed a barbecue grill molded like an ammo box from a local veteran-owned business. My buddy Rick, a retired Navy guy with a loud laugh and no indoor voice, started crafting cardboard cutouts of trees and painted them to blend into the real ones in my yard. He added cartoon eyes to them just for fun. You want surveillance? He said. Let's give them something to look at. Even neighbors who weren't vets started pitching in. One mom brought over green streamers and plastic army men. Her kids wanted to build a cardboard tank for the lawn. I said go for it. I couldn't believe it. What started as a response to being spied on had turned into something bigger, something better. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us. The folks tired of being treated like criminals for planting daisies too close to the sidewalk. Tired of being watched, judged, controlled. We picked a Saturday afternoon for the event. Sent out casual invites. Told people to wear camo if they had it, or just come as they were. There'd be food, music, and games. Ray made camo-themed flyers that read, Backyard Freedom Party. No spying allowed. We didn't expect everyone to show up, but we underestimated how much people were fed up. Not just with my situation, but with the HOA in general. The buzz around the neighborhood was electric. You could feel it. People were excited. Finally, someone was standing up and doing it with a smile. I walked around my yard the night before the party, checking the lights, straightening decorations. There was a cardboard tank on one side, a camo net strung between 2 trees, and a sign that read, Private property, unless you're a squirrel, keep out. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't angry. I wasn't stressed. Tomorrow wasn't just about proving a point. It was about reclaiming joy. And maybe, just maybe, reminding a certain clipboard-carrying officer that you don't mess with a man's backyard. The morning of the party, I woke up with a strange mix of nerves and excitement. My yard looked like a military outpost. Camouflage netting draped over bushes, cardboard tanks standing guard by the sidewalk, streamers and signs poking fun at the HOA's overreach. By noon, the first veterans started rolling in. They came from all over, old Army buddies, Marine Corps friends, Navy vets who wanted to show their support. Most were dressed head to toe in camo gear. Some had full ghillie suits that made them look like walking bushes. The sight alone made me smile. Neighbors started peeking out of their windows. Curiosity turned into laughter when they saw the setup. A few came over with folding chairs and cold drinks. Kids dashed around wearing toy helmets, laughing as they ducked behind the cardboard tanks. We fired up the barbecue, our ammo box grill sputtering with hot dogs and burgers. Music played softly from a speaker, a mix of classic rock and old military tunes. It was exactly the kind of light-hearted, peaceful protest we had planned. As the afternoon went on, more people joined in. Old Mrs. Thompson, who lives 2 houses down, brought homemade potato salad. Mr. Jenkins from across the street showed up with a cooler full of lemonade. The whole block felt alive. Then, just as the sun dipped low, someone noticed movement near the parked cars at the edge of the street. A man crouched behind a silver sedan, holding a phone up. His eyes darted around nervously. I knew that stance anywhere. It was the HOA officer. He was trying to snap pictures of us again. This time, the whole neighborhood united. No one shouted. No one charged. Ray, one of my oldest friends and a Marine vet, quietly stood and walked over to him. Enjoying the party? Ray asked calmly, with a faint smile. The officer jumped, startled. His face flushed red. I'm just doing my job, he stammered. Ray nodded slowly. Right. Well, we're just neighbors having fun. No harm meant. The officer glanced around. The laughter, the music, the families eating and joking, no threat in sight. Ray put a hand on his shoulder. We'd appreciate it if you respected our privacy. The man didn't argue. Instead, he hurried away down the street, phone tucked away. For a moment, the crowd stood in silence. Then, the music picked back up.
Laughter returned. The message was clear. We wouldn't be intimidated. That night, as the party wound down, neighbors thanked us for standing up, not just for me, but for all of us. And something unexpected happened. The community felt closer than it had in years. We weren't just individuals anymore. We were united, by respect, by courage, by camouflage. The moment the HOA officer spotted Ray approaching, you could see the panic in his eyes. He fumbled with his phone, quickly lowering it, and without a word he turned and hurried away down the street. His retreat was as sudden as it was telling. That night, I watched the video footage from the party again, the clear images of him sneaking photos, trying to spy on us. This time, I wasn't going to let it slide. I put together a formal complaint for the HOA board. This packet was different from the last. It included timestamps, video clips, and statements from neighbors who had witnessed the party and the officer's behavior. I made sure to highlight the violation of privacy and the fear his spying caused in the community. I sent it by certified mail and emailed it directly to every member of the board. I was ready to fight. In the following days, something surprising happened. Other neighbors began coming forward. Mrs. Harris, the sweet lady who warned me weeks ago, told me she'd also found the officer peering into her backyard late one evening. Another neighbor mentioned her garden decorations being reported despite following every rule. It turned out I wasn't alone. One by one, voices grew louder. They sent their own complaints to the HOA, all describing the same invasive behavior. The board couldn't ignore it any longer. About a week after the party, the HOA called an emergency meeting. The whole neighborhood buzzed with anticipation. At that meeting, they discussed the officer's conduct in detail. They reviewed the video evidence and the multiple complaints. The conclusion was clear. His actions were inappropriate. He had crossed a line. The board voted unanimously to remove him from his position. There would be new policies too, strict rules to prevent unauthorized surveillance and to protect residents' privacy. For the first time, it felt like the community had taken back control. A dark cloud had lifted. Neighbors shook my hand, thanked me for standing up, not just for myself, but for everyone who'd been feeling watched and judged. I realized then something powerful. Sometimes it takes one voice to start a movement, one group of friends to bring people together, and when that happens, change is possible. A few weeks after the emergency meeting, word spread that the HOA officer had been officially removed from the board. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. The new HOA leadership promised changes, clear, firm rules that banned unauthorized surveillance on residents' properties. They made it clear that spying on neighbors wouldn't be tolerated anymore. Privacy was a right, not a privilege. The neighborhood felt different after that. It wasn't just the absence of the officer, it was something deeper. People started talking more openly. Neighbors who rarely said hello began stopping by to chat. The tight grip of fear and suspicion that had hung over the streets began to lift. I started getting thank you notes, simple cards left on my doorstep or slid under the door. They came from neighbors who wanted me to know they appreciated standing up. One note said, "Thank you for reminding us we have a voice." Another read, "Your courage brought us together." It was touching to realize that my small act of resistance had sparked a sense of community we hadn't felt in years. Even the kids seemed to notice. The cardboard tank stayed in the yard for weeks, becoming a fun reminder of how a little humor and courage could change things. I reflected on the whole experience, from the letters and sneaky photos to the camouflage party and the change that followed. It reminded me why I fought in the military, to protect freedom, dignity, and respect. And sometimes, the battles you think are small matter the most. Because standing up for your home, your peace, and your neighbors, that's what real service looks like. Looking back, I realized this whole experience wasn't just about hedges or garden decor. It was about standing up for what's right, calmly, firmly, and with a little bit of humor. I'm proud of my friends, the veterans who showed up not just with camo suits, but with their hearts. Proud of my neighbors who came together, some hesitant at first, but ready to reclaim their own peace. We didn't raise our voices or break any rules. We didn't lash out in anger. Instead, we chose to outsmart the problem. Because sometimes, the best way to deal with a bully is not with fists, but with camouflage. To blend in, stand united, and show that you won't be pushed around. That's what we did. And in doing so, we reminded each other what community really means. Respect, trust, friendship, and yes, a little bit of fun. Now, when I look out my window, my backyard feels like a place of peace again. No cameras hiding in bushes, no whispers behind fences. Just quiet mornings, the sound of kids playing, and neighbors waving hello. And you know what? My backyard's never looked better. So, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Have you ever dealt with an overbearing HOA or felt watched in your own home? I'd love to hear your stories and thoughts. Please share them in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with friends who might appreciate it. Your support means a lot and helps keep this channel going. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.